Over 60? Revealed. For shocking breakfast foods to avoid and 4 incredible choices to eat daily. 4. Nora's mornings had always begun with a soft hum of the coffee maker, its aroma swirling into the air like a spell that beckoned her out of sleep. For her, breakfast was sacred, a ritual infused with love, as she ladled fluffy pancakes dripping with syrup, a legacy handed down from generations. But lately, a creeping fatigue settled in her bones, casting shadows over her sunny disposition. Could those cherished dishes, once symbols of warmth, be the cause of her constant weariness? As her neighbor Bill watched her through the kitchen window with worried eyes, she felt prickles of shame. Why aren't I happy? A whisper in her mind nagged at her. Shouldn't warmth feel vibrant and alive? Amid the comforting sizzle and clatter, a growing unease began to swirl inside her gut. Her daughter Emily, always the voice of reason with her modern dietary wisdom, had been vocalizing her dismay just days before she returned home. Mom, you need to rethink what you're making. There's nothing healthy about those recipes. Nora's heart ached at the thought of her daughter, a burgeoning nutritionist with fresh perspectives, yet it felt like a daring kind of betrayal when she realized Emily's words echoed truths she was hesitant to confront. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days slipped by, marked by laughter but also a shadow of awkward silences whenever dinner conversations skirted around the topic of health. Nora's mind raced, a chaotic storm of nostalgia and fear. Had she really served her family love all those decades, only to now realize it might come at a cost? As she flipped through her mother's well-worn recipe book, pages yellowed and smudged, she felt the weight of tradition bear down on her. Each recipe served as a reminder of family gatherings, cozy evenings, and the safety of routine, yet the thought of sugar in everything and follow your heart now felt suffocating. Bill's gentle reassurances felt like a balm, but even his unwavering support couldn't ease the internal battle brewing inside. Nora, he said one afternoon, what if there's a way to honor those old traditions, but with a twist? His hopeful gaze wrestled with his concern for her health, forcing her to examine her choices. Could she dare to redesign her mother's love? But what if she failed? Would forsaking those syrupy pancakes mean ripping up the heart of her family's legacy? The turmoil mounted, a knot growing in her stomach as she prepared for Emily's visit. Would her daughter welcome this new way of living, or see it as an affront? Nora took a deep breath, standing before a blank slate of kitchen counters where she could either create or destroy, connecting pieces of her heritage to newfound health. The unsteady tightrope walk to redefine herself loomed ahead, heavy and unrelenting that as she watched the door swing open on that fateful morning. Filled with the scent of cautiously healthy alternatives, Nora's heart clenched. Would Emily see the vulnerability behind her culinary experiments, or would they stand in stark opposition? The battle lines were drawn. Nora felt exposed, an explorer in her own kitchen, questioning if she could emerge whole, all while the question hung in the air. Was she ready to embrace change without sacrificing the love that had held her family together for so long? Nora stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding as she faced the door, which had just swung open to reveal Emily carrying a beam of sunshine and an air of determination. The moment caught between nostalgia and impending change weighed heavily on her. Her daughter greeted her with a warm hug, and for the briefest seconds, Nora felt the tension dissolve. Yet, as reality settled in, her mind raced. She had prepared a breakfast that was a risky amalgamation of love and innovation. Hey, Mom, what smells so good? Emily's eyes sparkled with anticipation, but right beneath it lay a glimmer of suspicion. Nora had made a healthy version of her beloved pancakes, substituting whole wheat flour and a sugar alternative. As she set the table, preparing for the moment of truth, each item felt like a tightrope walk between past and present. Nora couldn't shake the nausea building up inside her. Well, I thought I might try something different today, she finally managed to say, her voice laced with uncertainty. With every forkful she watched her daughter analyze, she felt her breath quicken. She was no longer simply offering breakfast, but an overture to a conversation that had been simmering and scalding her spirit for weeks. Different is good. I'm intrigued to see how they taste. Emily picked up a fork tinted with caution. Taking a bite, her daughter's eyebrows knitted in thought. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, every second a countdown to the judgment she both craved and dreaded. Would Emily dismiss it, or would she validate her? This is interesting, Mom, Emily finally said, a judicious smile on her lips. You've done a great job with the healthier alternatives, but maybe we could tweak a few more recipes together? I can help. It'd be fun. Nora felt a wave of relief wash over her, but the thought of Emily wanting to fix her further stirred that old fear within. This new idea was nothing short of a revolution in the making, a shift that could either bring them closer or widen the chasm that had begun to form around their dinner table conversations. What do you mean by tweak? Nora's voice carried an edge, her need for clarity colliding with her desire to be supportive. This was the pivotal moment. Could she dare to welcome this partnership, or would her instinct to protect the sanctity of her family South legacy drive a wedge between them? I mean, we can merge your family traditions with my nutrition knowledge. Imagine all the generations that enjoyed your recipes fused with a twist of healthy flavor. It doesn't mean we erase everything. We honor it. Emily's enthusiasm was infectious, and for a fleeting moment, Nora allowed herself to envision a new culinary path, a narrative where health didn't have to erase love, but could enhance it. But doubt crept into her thoughts. Were recipes just vessels for love? And if she chose to adapt them, did that mean she was undermining her mother's heritage? The worries swirled in her mind, nudging her toward a resolution, but first, she had to confront the stark contrast between her reality and what she desired for her and Emily's future relationship. As they began to brainstorm and develop ideas for new dishes, their discussions became peppered with laughter. Each proposal felt like lifting a weight, daring Nora to relinquish control over her kitchen and the narrative that had defined her family for so long. Slowly, she began to recognize the strength in this shift. It was not about betrayal, but rather growth, allowing evolution in both the cuisine and their bond. Let us start with Friday family brunches, Emily suggested, the excitement clear in her voice. We can make it a fun project. Who knows what traditions we could establish? But then it hit Nora like a rogue wave. What if their exploration didn't just change their meals, but transformed their family altogether? And could she truly adapt without losing her own identity? As she opened up her mother's recipe book once more, each page felt like a crossroads filled with possibilities and perils. How far was she willing to go down this path of self-discovery? The kitchen buzzed with potential, yet the specter of resistance lingered in the background, casting shadows on their newfound plans. Nora gazed at her daughter, the stakes rising with every heartbeat. Couldn't he help but wonder, would this journey lead her toward liberation, or would it shackle her to an uncertainty she had never anticipated? Nora stared at the recipe book, her mother's scrawled notes mingling dangerously with her own swirling thoughts. They felt like echoes of a past she revered yet struggled to navigate. The words on the pages transformed into arteries of her lineage, connecting generations who had feasted upon love-bound flavors. In this kitchen, the air was thick with potential. It was a visceral representation of both connection and disconnection. Let us start with something simple, Emily said, interrupting Nora's reverie. How about recreating the breakfast casserole, but with whole grains and lots of veggies? The spark in her daughter's voice was undeniable, each suggestion imbued with excitement. And yet, it stoked a flicker of resistance within Nora. Are we simply remaking what has always been cherished? Or are we butchering history? She questioned aloud, though she wasn't sure if the inquiry was directed at Emily or herself. The thought of a casserole devoid of its prized components felt sacrilegious. Emily's expression shifted to one of contemplation, her brows knitting together. I think we can create something new while respecting what's been there all along. Remember making the casserole with Grandma? Those memories don't vanish just because we change the ingredients. The mention of her mother felt like both a balm and a weight. Nora remembered mornings spent in the dimly lit kitchen, the aroma of that casserole wafting through the air like a warm embrace filled with laughter and shared stories. How could she blend those cherished flavors with new narrative threads? As they worked, chopping vegetables and measuring grains, Nora noticed something shifting inside her, a small void of fear slowly being filled with newfound possibilities. Each slice and dice, each measurement, felt like a rebellion against the notion of losing her roots. Perhaps adapting these recipes wasn't an act of erasure, but a dynamic interpretation, a way to carry her mother forward into the future while still holding her close. Okay, she conceded, a soft smile tugging at her lips. Let us try the casserole your way. But I want us to keep the essence. My mother instilled something that hints at the original. Emily beamed, and as they worked together, Nora felt herself opening to the idea of collaboration, a dance of tradition and innovation. They laughed and exchanged stories, each moment revealing how intertwined their culinary heritage was with personal growth. Nora could feel something profound stirring, coaxing her out of her cocoon of resistance. She realized it wasn't just about food. It was about redefining what family meant. This act of merging recipes was, at its core, a reimagining of their connection. Each dish they prepared became a stepping stone toward understanding their individual and collective identities. But as they plated their beautiful, revamped casserole, a cloud settled over her mind. Was she truly ready for this new identity? Was she courageous enough to face the inevitable pushback that might come from family members who had yet to embrace change? The taste test was an intimate ceremony, filled with anticipation. Emily's eyes sparkled with delight as she sunk her fork into the casserole. If this works, Mom, we can build something extraordinary together. Nora nervously forked a piece herself, bracing for the unsettling mix of expectations and reality. Would her mother's legacy translate through these changes, or would the essence be lost forever? As she took a bite, a surge of flavor flooded her mouth. This wasn't just a breakfast. It was a bridge, an olive branch to her memories about her mother, and an invitation to embrace the future with Emily. The real question, she thought, glancing at her daughter, wasn't just whether the food was good, but whether she could embrace such a significant transformation. And then, the doorbell rang, cutting through the moment like a chilling breeze. Who could it be? A wave of apprehension washed over her. Would this unexpected visitor be yet another person to challenge her tentative steps toward reinvention? With a quick glance at Emily, Nora's heart raced. Whatever lay beyond that door would demand confrontation, an encounter that could either fracture or fortify the bonds she was striving to strengthen. Nora hesitated, the weight of uncertainty pressing against her chest as the doorbell chimed again, louder now, more insistent. She could feel Emily's expectant gaze upon her, a mixture of curiosity and concern etched on her daughter's face. What had they just begun to build, and would this visitor unearth cracks in their fragile collaboration? With a deep breath, she moved toward the door, reminding herself to anchor in the moment, to stand firm. The idea of change simmered inside her. Perhaps this unannounced visitor offered a new perspective, another layer to her understanding of family and tradition. But did she actually believe that? The contradictions knotted in her stomach. As she opened the door, her breath hitched the doorway framed Aunt Claire, her expression a storm of unease and tenacious resolve. Her aunt had always embodied the traditional culinary guard of the family, a staunch defender of recipes unaltered by modern whims. Claire. Nora heard the strains of surprise escape her own lips, and almost immediately, she braced herself, anticipating the whirlwind that would follow. Hi, Nora, Claire replied, her tone strained, eyeing the preparations unfolding in the kitchen as if they were an unsanctioned experiment. Emily's got this new take on the breakfast casserole, Nora explained, her voice tinged with the defensive edge she was trying to soften. Where Claire stepped forward, interrupting as if the mere mention of adaptation was enough to ignite a debate. You know your mother would have been horrified by the thought of a breakfast casserole defending itself with quinoa. A deep silence wrapped around them like a weight. Nora felt a wave of frustration rise against the lingering voice of her mother, now echoing in Claire's words. What did it mean to honor their history if it only chained her to fear and tradition? That would depend on your definition of horrified, Nora shot back, surprising herself with the bite in her voice. Perhaps her mother would have found joy in seeing her challenge conventions, adapting the very essence of her love into something new. I just don't want to see those memories tainted, Claire said, folding her arms defensively. You don't realize how easy it is to lose the thread of who we are with each new version of everything. I think we're still holding on to the thread, Emily chimed in, softer yet resolute. We're weaving it differently, shaping it to fit who we are now. Nora's heart swelled at Emily's fierce defense, seeing her daughter step into the fray, becoming a champion for the new narrative they were crafting together. Aunt Claire paused, the tension momentarily vacillating to uncertainty. In that fleeting moment, Nora recognized a crack in her aunt's armor, a shared concern for the past that seemed to reverberate within them both. Why don't you try it? Emily suggested, her voice brightening the somber ambience. Let us do a taste test. You can guide us. Help us infuse it with all those flavors you cherish. It can incorporate your memories, Aunt Claire. Nora watched as Claire's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation. It was a small shift, but it was there, pulsing invisibly in the air. Fine, Claire said slowly. I'll give you that much. But if this ends up a disgrace. The threat hung like a delicate thread in the space between them, trembling but yet to snap. Stepping aside to let Claire in, Nora felt the familiar comfort of her kitchen shifting into a new battleground where tradition would wrestle with innovation, and perhaps there, they would extract a truth that honored both. Now, as they began their collaborative venture chopping, discussing textures and flavors, swapping ideas, Nora felt something else stirring within her, a deeper realization. This was more than just a recipe. It was a rite of passage for their family, a negotiation between identities that could redefine what legacy meant. But even as laughter began to fill the kitchen, a quiet dread lingered in the back of Nora's mind. Would Claire's acceptance extend beyond a dish? Would her aunt embrace the evolution they were crafting, or would their experiment expose deeper rifts? Nora glanced at Emily, whose face radiated hope. Let us really show her what we can do, Nora thought, a surge of determination coalescing within her. She felt the weight of her mother's legacy driving her forward, but now it was mingled with the uncertainty of not just the dish, but the very nature of family itself. What would they discover beneath the cookbooks and conventions when all the flavors were woven together? And as they prepared to serve the casserole, Nora realized the true test awaited them not just in the kitchen but in their hearts. Would they solidify as a united front, or would the fragility of tradition unravel under modern scrutiny? The dish began to take shape in a whirlwind of colors and aromas, the kitchen alive with the sound of laughter and playful banter. Nora felt a rush of adrenaline as she sliced into the vegetables, the knife gliding through as easily as her thoughts began to crystallize. Each chop was a step towards something more profound than just dinner. It was a chance for reconciliation, a bridge between what had been and what could be. Claire, remember the way Mom used to? Emily started, her voice trailing off as she caught her aunt's gaze. What? Claire asked, her arms still crossed, though her body language was beginning to thaw. The way she always added that pinch of salt, just to balance the sweetness? I thought we could try that too. Claire's frown softened slightly, a small admission that perhaps, on some level, she welcomed this intermingling of past and present. The crack in her armor was widening with each taste they shared, and she found herself bending, if only slightly, to the idea that tradition could coexist with evolution at that moment. Something inside Nora shifted. This was not merely about preserving a family recipe. It was about forging a new identity, a deeper connection among the three of them. The casserole simmering in the oven became symbolic of their shared history and their future, one where the flavors of past memories intermingled seamlessly with fresh, innovative approaches. While the casserole bubbled and brewed, the air filled with the comforting scent of sautéed onions mixed with the vibrant spices Emily had chosen. Nora's confidence surged. She began to realize that she could reclaim aspects of her mother's legacy without being tied to the weight of its expectations. Claire, let us do something together after dinner, Nora suggested, her heart racing at the vulnerability of her words. Maybe we can write down our favorite family recipes, but add our own twists to them. What do you think? A flicker of surprise crossed Claire's face, followed by contemplation. You mean like a family cookbook? But what if? What if we do it one recipe at a time? We could even rotate who chooses the dish. Nora felt a swell of encouragement. This was a compromise, a pathway illuminated by shared experiences. Exactly. We'll keep the essence, yet we can let it evolve as we do. Emily beamed at both women, her excitement bubbling over. I don't just want to inherit those recipes. I want to feel them alive, to understand how they shaped us. In that moment, Nora understood. It was less about the pristine preservation of family traditions and more about breathing new life into them. Her mother's legacy wasn't confined to unwavering rules. It was expansive, allowing for creativity, for growth. Yet just as excitement began to blossom between them, Claire's voice broke through the warmth of the room. Remember, writing history means you also have to stand by it. What if people disagree with our new versions? The weight of that question hung in the kitchen air, suddenly turning the vibrant colors into shades of uncertainty. Would this shift betray the original? Would their families and friends accept the departure from the familiar path? Nora's stomach knotted at the thought. She felt the challenge gnawing at her as she reflected on the risks attached to their radical approach. We can't control how others perceive our journey, she admitted, her voice steady yet reflective. This is about us, forging our way into the future while honoring where we came from. Even as she spoke those words with conviction, the fear of judgment and potential backlash loomed large in her mind. Would her family truly embrace these new adaptations, or would they question Nora's integrity as the torchbearer of tradition? As the casserole timer chimed, signaling that the dish was ready for consumption, Nora felt an intense knot of anticipation and fear intertwining in her heart. This moment felt monumental, both an offering of love and a possible rejection of old ways. With the flavors melding together, would they serve not just a meal, but a newly forged family bond? Nora took a deep breath. Knowing their first taste test would unveil more than just culinary success, it would reveal the very fabric of their relationship, woven together in flavors yet untested. And as she lifted the casserole from the oven, she steeled herself for the inevitable critiques, ready, or perhaps not ready, to face the immediate truth of their choices. What she did know was that each reckoning would expose them to the raw honesty of their desires and fears. Would they emerge from this as a united front, or would the complexities of their histories shatter the fragile peace they were building? The moment of truth was imminent. Nora set the casserole dish on the table, steam wafting up like a gentle invitation into uncharted territory. Both Claire and Emily leaned in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and trepidation. As they took their first spoonfuls, Nora's heart raced. She watched for their reactions, each second stretching into an eternity. Emily's eyes lit up, and she smiled brightly. This is amazing, just the right amount of spice. It was as if she had unearthed a hidden treasure, and in that moment, her enthusiasm filled the room with warmth. Claire, however, hesitated before swallowing. A flicker of something hard to identify crossed her face. Surprise, pleasure, or perhaps doubt. It's different. I never imagined Mom's recipe could taste like this. Nora's heart sank momentarily at the uncertainty etched in Claire's brow. Was Claire's praise hidden behind layers of nostalgia and fear of change? The weight of her words hung there in the air, an echo of the larger question. Could they truly shift the narrative of their family tradition? Different can be good, Claire, Nora ventured, her voice firm but gentle. We're honoring her, but we're also acknowledging our growth. We can keep her spirit alive and let us flourish, too. She knew that in those words, she needed to convince not just Claire but herself as well. Claire's frown softened as she took another bite, her reluctance visibly lingering but the flavors starting to weave their way into her acceptance. I know. It's just, change is hard. Sometimes, the best dishes come from experimentation, Emily said, eager to bridge the gap. Just like us. Nora caught their laughter, guided by Emily's youthful enthusiasm, and felt the barriers slowly melting under the warmth of shared joy. It wasn't so much the dish in front of them, she realized, but the act of reconnection that was revitalizing their bonds. Each bite became a small celebration of their resilience together. After dinner, Nora felt charged with a new sense of purpose. It was time to act on her proposal to create their family cookbook. They needed a plan. Let us dedicate our first cooking day to Mom's famous lasagna, Nora initiated, seeing Claire's interest piqued. We can write her recipe as it was, then build our versions around it. I could come up with a vegetarian twist, Emily chimed in, enthusiasm firing up again. Claire scratched her chin, considering. And maybe we can incorporate fresh herbs from my garden this time? Encouragement surged within Nora. This was how they could navigate the tension between the old and the new. Exactly. Let us make it a blend of her style with our preferences. With every verbal exchange, Nora felt the trepidation melting away, replaced with an exhilarating sense of possibility. As the evening wore on, they exchanged stories about their greatest kitchen disasters, laughter replacing tension, with each embarrassing memory punctuating their conversation like the hearty laugh of an old friend. It struck Nora that vulnerability was the hallmark of that kitchen, a sanctuary where fear transformed into resilience. But as the night wore on, lingering questions nagged at her. Would this enthusiasm withstand outside scrutiny? What if their siblings reacted differently to the new recipes? The legacy she was shaping felt powerful but tethered to a lingering uncertainty. How far could she push the envelope before it snapped? Nora clung to the enthusiasm of that night, storing away their discussions, yet she couldn't shake the apprehension that loomed on the periphery. The balance between nostalgia and innovation was precarious, and each day brought her closer to a reckoning with family dynamics. With visions of herbs, vegetables, and something more besides filling her mind, she prepared to meet the first challenge of their culinary map, gathering all the recipes from her siblings. What would happen when she presented these ideas back to them? Would acceptance grow, or would she face an unexpected pushback that could fracture the fragile progress they had made? The unease gripped her as she ventured forward, poised on the brink of the unknown, ready to confront her family and redefine the legacy they shared. The moment of truth loomed, ready to unfold with each recipe she planned to unveil. Nora woke the next morning with a newfound resolve, the sun filtering through her kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the countertop. Today would mark the beginning of a significant chapter, not just for her cooking, but for her relationship with her siblings. She glanced around, taking in the quiet of the house, and felt a rush of nervous excitement. Gathering the recipes wouldn't just be a logistical endeavor. It would be a communal act, a call to the family to embrace not only their mother's legacy, but the evolution of their shared dietary narrative. On her way to the computer, she stopped in front of a framed photo of her mother, apron-clad and seated at the kitchen table, laughter captured mid-echo. Something deep inside Nora had shifted. She desired to embrace change, but remained aware that some, like Claire, might resist this new direction. Would they see this project as a tribute or a challenge? Nora opened her laptop, determined to draft an email to her siblings. As she typed, her fingers hesitated over the keys. How would she present the idea without pushing too hard? A delicate balance was necessary not only to honor their mother's memory, but to encourage participation in this creative venture. After several drafts, she settled on a message that read warmly, yet directly, emphasizing collaboration and openness. I thought it would be wonderful to create a family cookbook together, she wrote. Let us take turns sharing our favorite recipes, then explore personal renditions. We can start with Mom's lasagna. Nora felt the pulse of uncertainty quicken within her. What if her siblings felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or thoughtlessly resistant? With her heart pounding, she hit send. Almost immediately came a reply. Emily responded with excitement bubbling through her words. But Claire's response arrived later, shadowed by a contemplative silence. Would the initial excitement alone hold sway over the underlying hesitations? As hours passed, Nora busied herself in the kitchen, preparing the ingredients for the lasagna. Each chop of the vegetables was a rhythmic mantra of anticipation. Cooking had always been her sanctuary, a space where she could exhale stress and inhale creativity. Today felt different, branded with heavier stakes. What if this traditional dish became a flashpoint for disagreement instead of a bridge for connection? The doorbell rang, pulling Nora from her thoughts. She opened the door to find both Claire and Emily standing on the threshold with bags containing ingredients for their collaborative meal. Sure, it was just a shopping trip, yet the weight of their choices seemed to carry more significance. Each ingredient pegged to a moment, an opportunity to share, adapt, and create. Are we ready to create something incredible? Emily exclaimed, bouncing on her toes, her youthful energy infectious. Nora managed to smile, but noticed Claire hovering slightly behind, her expression unreadable, a mixture of anticipation and hesitance clashing in her stance. As they moved into the kitchen, Nora felt the gravitas of the moment settle like the fresh basil she was slicing. It was fragrant and promising, yet it carried its own risks of altering their family's taste. The process began with laughter and friendly teasing. They shifted into roles, Nora directing, Emily diving into the experimental flavor profiles, while Claire meticulously followed instructions from the original handwritten recipe. Herbert's garden herbs made their way into the dish, infusing the air with a nostalgic spirit that tugged at their memories. Yet, despite the light chatter, Nora felt the tension thread delicately through the as they layered the pasta. It occurred to Nora that every family face a reckoning. Their relationships forged in history often fought against the flow of change. Would they find strength in creating something new? By the time the lasagna was baking, the kitchen was alive with the scent of tradition and innovation merging. Moments of joy were punctuated with lingering shadows of doubt, and amid the fragrance wafting from the oven, Nora questioned whether the dish would bridge the old with the new or become a battleground for nostalgia versus exploration. The atmosphere thickened, swirling with both hope and apprehension as she gathered the sisters together for the first tasting. Nora's heart raced at the thought of revealing their culinary evolution to the rest of the family. It was a small victory today, but an impending confrontational slip loomed with the family gathering on Sunday. Would her siblings embrace their reimagined dish as a symbol of freedom, or would the keywords "a different lasagna" strike a discordant note, leading them toward familial fracturing? The clock ticked down, tension mounting, as the doorbell rang again, announcing unexpected guests. Nora felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Who would be joining them, and how would they guard their little revolution against potential adversity? Nora inhaled sharply, the doorbell echoing through the charged atmosphere of the kitchen. She exchanged glances with Emily and Claire, the tension palpable. What had started as an attempt to reclaim a shared family tradition now felt precariously poised above an abyss of expectations and interpretations. The unresolved emotions swirling around them were suddenly tinged with the promise of uninvited scrutiny. Who could that be? Emily asked, her enthusiasm dimmed just enough to reflect the uncertainty on Nora's face. I'll check. Stay here, Nora replied, bracing herself as she approached the door. When she opened it, her heart sank a bit further. It was her Aunt Shirley, her mother's sister, who always had a flair for making every gathering feel more significant than it really was. Shirley stepped in with the vibrancy of a summer-esque day, clutching a dish silvery under a culinary cloth. I brought my famous stuffed peppers. I thought I'd surprise you all, she beamed, oblivious to the subtle shift in mood as Nora's pulse raced. Surprise us indeed, Nora managed, her voice even tighter than usual. Would Aunt Shirley's well-meaning intrusion amplify the existing tensions, throwing everything they'd just begun to build into disarray? As Aunt Shirley set her dish on the counter, the aroma spilled forth, overshadowing the scent of their bubbling lasagna. Nora felt her ambitions mingling with the pressure of familial legacy as she silently questioned whether she should share her plans for the cookbook or hold back. The fear of taking up space grew heavier by the moment. Wow, this smells amazing, Emily exclaimed, far more interested in the stuffed peppers than the burgeoning chasm between culinary traditions. Thank you, sweetheart. Nothing says love like a homemade meal, right? Aunt Shirley replied, her tone carefree as she reached toward the mixing bowl they had used for their lasagna. What do you girls have cooking? Nora felt the kernel of hope that had nestled into her resolve begin to fray. It was clear that Aunt Shirley's arrival could distract Emily and Claire, causing them to slip into their usual roles of following established patterns. The family dynamics around cooking were intricate and often unspoken, each recipe stemming from deep-rooted anxieties and unfulfilled expectations. Would they revert back to their past routines or lift the culinary veil of the moment? A curious part of Nora yearned to open up about the collaborative cookbook, yet she hesitated, fearing the onslaught of questions and possible resistance. Why couldn't she just revel in their shared meal without complicating the atmosphere even further? With a nervous glance at her sisters, she chose to cautiously regroup her thoughts. We decided to put a twist on Mom's lasagna today, she said, more to assert her stance than to seek approval. We're thinking of starting a family cookbook. Aunt Shirley raised an eyebrow at the revelation, a slight smirk dancing on her lips. A cookbook? That's cute. I'll bet your mother would have loved that. But let us not forget, tradition is important too, dear. The fleeting acknowledgement hung in the air a moment longer than necessary. Nora's determination clashed against Aunt Shirley's veiled skepticism. As the four women moved around the kitchen, Nora's mind raced. The potential for a surge of familial connection and shared memories hung tantalizingly close, yet the specter of dissent loomed ominously large. Each passing minute felt like a tightening noose as Nora recognized she was at a crossroad. Would choosing vulnerability and openness draw her closer to her sisters, or would it expose their lingering resentments? The heat of the oven pulsed as unabashedly as Nora's doubts. She peered around the room, where scent and memory intertwined, setting the stage for conflicts unresolved. Yet as she felt the weight of her aunt's judging gaze, she knew the path forward could not be forced but needed to flow from a place of radical honesty. Okay, let us try this, she thought, steeling herself for the conversations ahead. The family gathering loomed on Sunday, now merging the homemade offerings of her aunt into the chaotic embrace of culinary evolution. Would this experiment lead to an exhilarating collaboration, or would it further entrench the fissures hidden beneath the surface? As dinner plates clinked against one another, Nora wrestled with the question echoing louder than any spice she could add. How might she navigate this new territory while staying true to her vision? The clock moved relentlessly toward their family gathering, each tick laced with uncertainty that a loud crash from the countertop jolted Nora from her thoughts, the sound marking the intersection of creativity and chaos. She turned, breath suspending in her lungs, preparing to face whatever challenge awaited her next. Nora exhaled slowly, her heart racing as she scanned the kitchen. The source of the crash was her sister Claire, fumbling nervously with an oversized bag of flour that now lay sprawled across the countertop, a cloud of white fluff settling over everything. The moment felt heavy with layered symbolism. Claire's misstep echoed Nora's own dread, the fear of making mistakes, the hesitation that sometimes paralyzed her in pursuing her goals. Sorry, I was just trying to help, Claire squeaked, her cheeks flushing crimson. While Nora kept her gaze steady on her sister's embarrassment, frustration bubbled just beneath the surface. As if to disrupt the simmering tensions further, Aunt Shirley broke into laughter, the sound light, yet filled with an unmistakable undertone of condescension. Nora bit her lip, suppressing a torrent of unvoiced thoughts. Should she dive into the chaos of familial dynamics, or take this as an opportunity to forge a new path? The cookbook loomed in her mind's eye, tantalizing yet elusive. This was supposed to be a collaboration of their family's recipes, but each incident seemed to reinforce the nagging belief that her ideas might be seen as frivolous, an unworthy deviation from tradition. All right, let us clean this up together, she finally stated, her voice firm but calm. We need to regroup, or we'll never finish dinner in time. The sisters resisted the pull of their usual roles. Emily joined Nora, helping to clear the flour with an urgency that surprised them both, leaving Claire standing uncertainly at the periphery. The moment felt like a ritual cleansing. The flour was not merely a mess, but a reflection of their shared burdens and expectations. I think we could add a fun twist to the cookbook, Emily chimed in as they worked. You know, maybe even some new ideas to blend with Aunt Shirley's dishes. Nora's heart warmed at Emily's suggestion, recognizing a potential ally in her sister. A new flicker of hope ignited within her. Exactly, she replied, the words firming into her resolve. Why can't we share our reinterpretations alongside the traditional recipes? Let us show how we value both the past and the present. You think Aunt Shirley will take it that way? Claire asked, her brows furrowing. That question carried an unspoken weight. Would they risk stepping over uncharted boundaries, or would they stay silent, fearing repercussions? Nora inhaled deeply, allowing her vision to expand. We can't let fear dictate our creativity. This is our legacy too. If we approach it with love and authenticity, I believe it will resonate. The initial tension in the kitchen subtly shifted. Each sister transitioned from self-doubt into an eagerness to create something meaningful. Claire began to pitch ideas for fusion dishes while they cleaned, her earlier embarrassment dissipating. In that moment, Nora realized that the family's culinary traditions could be a platform instead of a prison. She felt the shackles of hesitation loosening, the potential for meaningful conversations glimmering in the backdrop. What if they could create a narrative that celebrated their journey, rather than just the isolated recipes? As the last of the flour was swept away and conversation flowed freely, a delicious smell wafted through the kitchen, an aromatic symphony of their combined efforts. Nora sensed a tidal shift inside her, a strengthening resolve coalescing around the mission for the cookbook. Then Aunt Shirley called from the stovetop, her voice slicing through the warmth of familial camaraderie. "Girls, you know you have to honor the proper way, right? Some traditions shouldn't be tampered with." Nora swallowed hard, each shared glance confirming that she stood before a challenge greater than any ingredient list. The matriarchal expectations loomed large, demanding conformity at a time when her spirit craved reinvention. The evening deepened as unresolved emotions trailed in the air, and Nora could feel the boundaries between tradition and innovation tightening, tension straining just below the surface of kitchen laughter. It was a realization that sharpened her focus. Now was not merely an opportunity to engage in familial traditions, but to confront them. How do I balance innovation with honoring our history? She whispered to herself as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation ahead. The question gnawed at her, its sharp edges making her anxious. Could the choice she made next push her even further into the heart of personal discovery? As the door creaked open and Aunt Shirley trod closer, Nora prepared to face whatever storm awaited her. Would this be the moment where she redefined her role within the family narrative once and for all? Nora stood tall, bracing herself for the unfolding confrontation with Aunt Shirley. The air was thick with unspoken words, and her heart raced as the echoes of past family dynamics clashed against the hopes she had nurtured for healing and creativity in the kitchen. The question loomed large. How could she encourage evolution without disregarding the legacy that had defined them for so long? "Let us embrace what makes us unique, Aunt Shirley," she began, her voice steady yet imbued with urgency. "Tradition is vital, but it shouldn't imprison us. We can honor Mom's recipes while allowing ourselves the freedom to innovate. There's beauty in evolution, and it doesn't mean we lose our roots." Aunt Shirley narrowed her eyes, weighing Nora's words. Nora could feel the collective breath of her sisters and Emily, waiting for a hint of acceptance, a glimmer of possibility. Would Aunt Shirley see the potential for growth, or would she remain steadfast in her resistance? As the tension tightened, Nora shared her vision of the family cookbook, painting a vibrant picture of collaboration, where cherished recipes could coexist with inventive variations. A moment of silence enveloped the room, leaving a palpable energy lingering in the air. Finally, Aunt Shirley relented, her brow easing. "Fine, but if we're going to do this, I'll bring my own twist to the lasagna tradition tonight," she declared while a cautious smile broke through, signaling a truce simmering under the surface. Nora felt her confidence swell. It was a moment imbued with possibility, a shift toward inclusion rather than division. The atmosphere transformed rapidly, laughter amplifying as Claire and Emily joined in with excitement. They began exchanging visions for new recipes, transforming the kitchen from a battleground to a collaborative space. Each suggestion spun the narrative forward, blending tradition with creativity. Aunt Shirley's initial resistance began to dissolve as the flavors of anticipation filled the air. As they sautéed, tasted, and adjusted spices together, a remarkable realization dawned on Nora. This was more than collaboration. It symbolized the very heart of family, a dance of remembrance and forward motion. In the process of reimagining their culinary legacy, they were forging new paths of connection. Nora noticed a newfound camaraderie forging through her kitchen. As they plated their lasagna side by side with Aunt Shirley's stuffed peppers, a wave of fulfillment washed over her. She had transitioned from a place of apprehension to one of courage and belonging, redefining her space within the framework of her family's history. They sat together around the table. Nora, Aunt Shirley, Emily, and Claire each played a testament to their collaborative efforts. The initial jitters faded, replaced by a shared sense of accomplishment. Nora carefully lifted her fork, The first bite suspended in time as she savored not just the flavors, but the essence of what they had all built together. Wow, it actually works, Emily exclaimed, her eyes alight. This is just as special as I remember, but with a twist that honors each of us, too. Nora's heart swelled with pride. She had successfully merged love with innovation, reclaiming her role not just as a provider of tradition, but also as an architect of new memories. She could feel the confidence settling into her bones, knowing she belonged in this evolving narrative of their family. Tonight, we've not only created a meal, we've hinted at a new family story, Nora concluded, her voice resonant with truth. Let us promise to keep innovating, exploring flavors, and sharing our journeys. Our legacy should grow and breathe just like we do. As the evening lingered, the warmth in the kitchen transformed into a sense of belonging, realization dawning on each member present. This was not just about food. It was about understanding, partnership, and love stitched tightly through every recipe. From this moment forward, they would weave together their histories, cherishing the past while remaining courageously open to the future. Nora looked around the table, her heart a testament to growth and reflection. She had achieved what she set out to do. She had courageously faced her fears, embraced innovation, and strengthened her family bonds, all while honoring her mother's legacy. At that moment, Nora knew that she had accomplished a profound transformation, one that signified not just success in the kitchen, but in the very fabric of her existence. As they raised their glasses, celebrating not just the meal but the spirit of reinvention, Nora felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Life was meant for evolution. In her bold leap, she had earned her rightful place at the table not just as a keeper of tradition, but as a pioneer of family love. This was her triumph. Now, don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts and makes a difference for all of us. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful message. This is your moment to show your support, the time to help others embrace their journeys, just like Nora did.